Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Inshallah, today we will discuss a research approach. So what is the meaning of research approach? Research approaches are plans and procedures for research that consist of the steps from broad assumptions to detailed methods of data collection, data analysis, and interpretation of the data or discussion of the data. So the approach or the plan involves several decisions or several steps, and these approaches need to be taken in order in the order in which they make sense
Okay.
to the researcher. So in this case, you can discuss with the lecturer, which is you can discuss with me the steps or the order of the research approach, what to write first and what to write next, and also the order of the presentation. So the overall decision involves which approach should be used to study the topic that you choose.
Okay.
So informing the decision or the approach should be the philosophical assumptions that the researcher brings to the study of the topic, and also the procedures of inquiry called research designs.
Okay.
So the procedure of inquiry involves the data collection, how you collect the data, how you input the data, analyze the data, and obtain the research findings.
Okay.
And you need to mention the research methods of the data collection, data analysis, and interpretation or discussion.
Okay.
The selection of a research approach is based on the nature of the research problem that the researcher mentioned, or the issue being addressed, the issue that is mentioned, uh, which needs uh, which needs solution.
Okay.
And in qualitative study, some people they start the approach using the personal experience. So this is for the qualitative study, and also the audience for the study. So there are some research done, for example, on behalf of the government, the research project for the organization. So they have to address the need of the audience. So that's called the audience. But for students, the audience is the the supervisor and the examiner.
Okay.
Research design, the researcher need to choose whether the study is qualitative or quantitative or mixed methods. So the researcher also decides on the type of study within these
Okay.
three choices, whether quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods. So research designs are types of inquiry within quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method approaches. So there are differences between quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method. I haven't finished this table, so I will
Yeah,
talk about it later.
it's okay, sir.
Approaches to business and social research. Researchers usually handle numerous problems and apply research methods to obtain the answer to the research
Okay,
questions. They may
okay,
use a single study, a single approach, for example, quantitative study or qualitative study or mixed method. Uh, so they may use a single we call a approach or a combination of designs, a single design. For example,
yeah,
some researcher they use a quantitative method.
okay,
Some researcher they use a qualitative method. Some they use a different the mix, the combination of the two methods, which is called the mixed method. Mixed method means the method which use a combination of quantitative and qualitative research.
okay,
So the researcher or investigator has to decide about which types of approach that they want to study. Broadly speaking, there are two main domains of research, which are quantitative research and qualitative research. Let's look at quantitative research. Refers to the type of research that is based on the methodological principles of positivism and adheres to the standards of strict research design, which is developed before the actual research. So in quantitative research, before the researcher uh, collects the data, analyze the data, and interpret the data, the researcher have to have the theoretical framework. Uh, um, okay, so it has to have a theoretical framework and then the hypothesis. Um, then it designs the how the data is to be collected.
well,
On the other hand, for so quantitative research is used in almost every aspect of life, including social science like us and also business research. For qualitative research, this type of research uses a number of methodological approach such as phenomenology, hermeneutics, and social interactionism. So in qualitative research, it employs method of data collection and analysis that are non-quantitative. So the data may be in the form of words, observation, and the purpose is to explore social relations and describes reality as experienced by the respondents. So, for example, the researcher goes out to a particular setting, to a particular place, and collect the data using observation or interviews or other methods and analyze the data. And the data is not quantitative. The data is in the form of words or in the form of what do you call recording or some sketches or in the form of pictures, videos. So it is non-quantitative.
Okay.
So for example, anthropologists, they study the customs and the behavior of people from other cultures, or sociology or psychology. There was one researcher from Japan uh,
Okay.
who came to Malaysia to study the influence of Islamic education on the behavior of the people. So the researcher came to observe uh, a few at a few places, observe the behavior, how the Muslims pray, how the Muslims uh, fast, how the Muslims receive their Islamic education, and they study on the impact of that Islamic education on the behavior, whether they become good people or not good people. So that is an example of qualitative research. And then research also can be categorized into two types, pure research and applied research. Uh, can you see or not?
Yeah. Yes, I can see the
Okay,
body and application research. Yeah.
okay. So research can be divided into pure research and applied research. Pure research is usually used to develop new knowledge
Okay.
that advances our understanding of the real world. It evaluates concepts and theories and thus attempts to expand the limits of the existing knowledge. It may also help in rejecting or supporting existing theories about the real world.
Okay.
So, for example, there is a research on the compliance behavior of income zakat.
Yeah.
So the zakat is a religious obligation which must be complied by all Muslims because Allah mentions several times in the Quran, "Aqimus salata wa atu zakat." So the question is, some people, some Muslims who are eligible to pay zakat, they still
Yeah.
do not pay zakat.
Yes.
So we want to study or to examine the factors why there there are some Muslims who still refuse or do not comply with the payment of zakat.
Okay.
So that is called pure research. We want to develop new knowledge and we want to have more understanding on the behavior of the Muslims um, for not paying zakat.
Yes.
Okay, so you can also do a study on the acceptance of Islamic banking, for example. Because Allah mentions in the Quran, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim wa ahallallahu al-bai'a wa harrama riba."
Honorable.
So from this verse, it means that the Muslims must avoid conventional banking system because it involves riba. So Allah prohibits riba. So the Muslims must accept and use the Islamic banking. However, in reality, there are still some Muslims who who accept and use the conventional banking. So we want to examine and study what are the factors that determine whether they use Islamic banking or whether they use conventional banking. So that is called the
Okay.
pure research. Okay. In applied research is conducted when a decision must be made about a specific real life problem.
Okay.
For example, um, why the sales, for example, the sales of a company is in decline, why the profit
Yeah.
is in decline. So that is called the real world problem faced by organizations or any problems faced by society. So applied research um, is done in order to come up with the solutions, the real world solutions to the real life problem.
Okay.
So it usually the applied research have some commercial value. Okay, for example, now during the COVID-19, um, the the we have to find solutions to come up with a vaccine to
Yeah.
uh, vaccine to be used by the people to uh, what do you say vaccine so that uh, we can have the immune system
Okay.
in order to cope with the COVID-19 virus. So the applied research in this case is to find the proper vaccine. And there has been many research done to come up with the vaccine. And Alhamdulillah, based on the research, the clinical study, there are now several
Yeah.
companies who come up with the vaccine for
Yeah.
COVID-19.
Alhamdulillah.
So that is called the applied research to find the solutions to a specific real life problem.
Yeah.
So sometimes applied research is include also the action research.
Okay.
So action research is a type of applied research. Action research is the application of fact finding to practical problem solving in a social situation with a view to improving the quality of action within it, involving the collaboration and cooperation of researchers, practitioners, and laymen. Uh,
Okay.
can you wait?
It's okay, sir. It's okay. Take your time.
Assalamualaikum. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, Hafiz, yeah. Sekarang ni work from home. Okay. Assalamualaikum.
Okay.
Okay.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So we move to next chapter.
Okay.
It's on literature review. So
Okay.
you need to write one chapter on literature review. So inshallah we
Okay.
will discuss how to write the literature review.
Okay.
So the purpose of literature review is to help
These are my.
to determine whether the topic is worth studying, meaning whether the topic is okay or not to be studied.
Okay.
And literature review provides insight into ways in which the researcher can limit the scope to a needed area of inquiry. Because when you want to study, you need to really focus
Okay.
and limit the scope. You cannot study everything because it is not manageable. So you have to be really focused and have the proper scope so that your study can be finished within the stipulated time. So before
Yeah.
considering what literature you want to use, first identify a topic to study. So before doing the literature, you need to have the topic to study and reflect on whether it is practical and useful to undertake the study. So in your case, the topic is acceptance of the usage of Islamic banking and finance. So the literature review should be related uh, to the variables that you want to study. For
Okay.
example, the variable you want to study is acceptance or usage. So the literature review should review um, based on the topic that you choose.
Yeah.
So usually it's based on quantitative study, it's based on the dependent variable. So in your study, what is the independent variable that you use?
Yeah.
What is the dependent variable in your study? Is it acceptance or is it usage?
For my search, some are starting for some bank and some no.
Okay. So what is the dependent variable? Is it acceptance?
Yes, acceptance.
Okay. So for literature review, you need to find as many as possible the studies on the acceptance model,
Okay.
whether it is related to Islamic banking, whether it's related to zakat, or whether it's related to any other context.
Okay.
So once the researcher identifies a topic that can and should be studied, the search can begin for related literature on the topic. So you have to decide the topic first. So the literature review accomplishes several purposes. It shares with the reader the results of other previous studies that are closely related to the one that you study. For example, acceptance. So there are a few theories on acceptance which have been done before. So you need to read and you need to relate the study, your study to the other previous studies discussed in the literature. It doesn't matter whether it is in the context of Islamic banking or in other contexts. It is okay. The most important is the topic is the same. The topic here we mean the dependent variable, which is acceptance. So the literature review provides a framework for establishing the importance of the study, as well as a benchmark for comparing the results with other findings. So by doing the literature review, you can compare and contrast the findings of other previous studies. Um, Studies need to add to the body of literature on a topic, and literature sections in proposals are generally proposals here. In your case, it means the assignment, right?
Okay.
Literature
Yeah.
sections in proposals or in your assignments are generally shaped from larger problem to the narrower issue that leads directly into the
Yeah.
methods of study. So you want to review the literature on acceptance from the larger problem. So it doesn't have to be in the
Yeah.
case of Islamic banking. You can look at acceptance in other contexts or other environment, and then you narrow down to the case of Islamic banking. Okay,
Okay.
in general, the literature review can take several forms. Cooper discussed four types of literature review. Literature review that integrate what others have done and said. So that's
Yeah.
number one. Criticize. There are literature reviews that criticize previous work
Books.
and build bridges between related topics. So you want to try to relate the topics and identify the central issues in
Okay.
the field or the topic. So in your case, the central issue is the acceptance of customers on Islamic banking um, products and services. So with the exception of criticizing previous works, most dissertation and thesis serve to integrate the literature, organize the literature into a series of related topics, often from the general topics to narrower topics, and summarize the literature by pointing out the central issues. On the other hand, in qualitative research, so you may not want to do, but we just mention a little bit for our knowledge. So in qualitative research, the researchers use the literature in a manner consistent with the assumptions of learning from the participant. So in qualitative research, the researcher goes out to get the data, whether by interviewing or by observation or by recording, in order to learn from the participant.
Okay.
Okay, so whatever the response from the participant, it becomes the data in qualitative research. And from the data, the researcher will try to come up with interpretations and discussion. And finally, the researcher will have his or her own uh, theory or hypothesis uh, developed from the data. So in qualitative research, the data comes first and the theory and hypothesis comes later. So this is different from quantitative research, where in quantitative research, the theory or the theoretical framework and the hypothesis comes first. Then the researcher will go out and get the data to test whether
Yeah.
the data supports or does not support the theory. So the use of literature in qualitative research varies considerably. In theoretically oriented studies such as ethnographies or critical ethnographies, the literature on a cultural concept or a critical theory is introduced early in the report. So, in grounded theory, case studies, and phenomenological studies, literature is often literature is less often used to stage for the study. We will discuss in more detail about grounded theory, case studies, and phenomenology. Some researchers, they do the literature review in separate section. So most of
Okay.
the quantitative research, they write a literature review in separate section. For example, in chapter 2, as a separate chapter.
Yeah.
In theory-oriented qualitative studies, such as ethnography, critical theory, or transformative aim, the researchers locate the theory discussion and literature in separate sections, typically toward the beginning of the write-up. So the literature review in qualitative study is written earlier in chapter 1. So that's the difference. Besides, the researcher may incorporate the related literature in the final section. Some researchers they incorporate the literature review in the final section where they use the literature review to compare and contrast the previous findings with the findings of the study. So, for example, um, a researcher can use the literature review to compare and contrast the result of previous research on acceptance of Islamic banking. Compare the findings of the previous research with the current finding of the study.
Okay.
In quantitative research includes a substantial amount of literature at the beginning of a study, usually in chapter 2, in order to provide direction for the research questions or research hypothesis. Hypothesis is in chapter 3 after the theoretical framework. So literature review is also used to introduce a problem. Sometimes literature review is written in the problem statement. Okay. Also, the literature review can introduce a theory. So the theoretical framework or the theory and hypothesis development is also based on the literature review. So the literature review can also introduce a theory. Theory means explanation of expected relationships. And the researcher then revisits the literature and makes comparison between the results with the existing findings in the literature. In this way, the quantitative researcher uses the literature deductively as a framework for the research questions or hypotheses. Okay, so we move. Any questions so far?
Thank you, sir, so much.
So, in summary, the literature used in mixed methods project will depend on the
Yeah.
strategy and relative weight given to the qualitative or quantitative research in the study.
A study
So for mixed method, it use both quantitative and
and
qualitative
qualitative.
method, right? So
Okay.
it is recommended for the mixed method. Uh, it is recommended that in a qualitative study, use the literature sparingly in the beginning in order to convey an inductive design. Inductive design means um, the uh, the design which starts with the data first, right? And then
Yeah.
from the data, the researcher will try to come up with the theory and the hypothesis. So consider the most appropriate place for the literature in a qualitative study and base the decision on the audience for the project. So usually for qualitative study, the researcher write the framework at the beginning of the study. Keep in mind the options, placing the literature review at the beginning to frame the problem or placing it in a separate section. Some they do as a separate chapter and using it at the end to compare and contrast with the findings. And literature review is also used to at the end chapter, for example, in chapter 5, to compare and contrast the current finding of the study with the findings of other research. Okay, so let's see. Steps in literature review. Here are the steps that is recommended in literature review. Step number one, begin by identifying keywords, which is useful in locating materials in an academic library or at a college or university. Now you can find the literature in Google Scholar, in a
Yeah.
e-library or some other uh, what do you call using internet, right? You
Yes. Yes, sir.
you don't have to go to the physical library.
Yeah.
We have e-library, we have Google Scholar, we have other places that we can find the literature. The most important is using keywords. For example, if your dependent variable is acceptance, then you type the word acceptance. And if you use the uh, theory of acceptance model, for example, so
Okay.
you type theory of acceptance model as the keyword, and they will give you most of the studies on the theory of acceptance model. So if you use that model, then that's how you find the literature. So you need to identify the keywords. With these keywords, go to the library. You know, you can go to Google Scholar or there are some websites developed where you can find
Okay.
the literature. Okay.
Okay.
So in your case, it says here 50 literatures. If you can find for masters, if you can find, for example, 30, I think is enough. Okay. Although here it says 50. So
Okay.
if you can get, for example, 30 literature on acceptance and the theory of acceptance model, you must download. You must download in
Okay.
what do you call in your computer. put it
Yeah, yeah.
in a folder so that it's easier for you to find. And it is recommended that you use a Mendeley. You can okay. You can go to Google and then type how to use Mendeley. Type how to use Mendeley. Then it will
Mm-hmm.
explain to you how to use Mendeley, how to save your literature in Mendeley, and how to write the literature review using Mendeley.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you familiar with Mendeley or not?
Sorry.
Have you ever used Mendeley before?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you can go to Google and type how to use Mendeley. Have you tried
Okay.
this before?
No, sir. I don't have it mentally.
Okay, you can learn by yourself. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Go to
Okay.
Go to Google and type how to use Mendeley.
Okay.
Okay, and then it will explain to you. And it's actually easy. If you have any question, you can ask. You can ask me
Yeah,
anytime.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So Mendeley is a good software to write a literature review.
Okay.
Okay. What you want to do is you skim, you go through the articles or the chapters, and then you just duplicate or copy paste something that are important to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so some people they do like this. Some people, okay, they make um they make a table like this. Okay, some people they make table like this. So the first column they write the topic, author, author,
Okay.
year, topic. You just copy paste from
Okay.
the author, year, topic. And the second is variables. So you just copy the variables that are used in the study. So
Okay.
in the variables, you want to include independent, you want to include DV, dependent variable, and
Okay.
then IV, independent variable, and if they have, you know, the what they call the mediating variable or other
Okay.
variable. So you just list. If you have like 20 or 30, then you just add this
20 column.
20 row like this.
Okay.
So here the third is finding. The most important is findings. You just copy paste the findings of the study,
Okay.
and then here usually they call gaps. This one you just leave it blank. Gap
Okay.
Gaps here sometimes the researcher mentions at the end of the article what should be studied,
Okay.
or they call the direction for future studies, something like that. So try to do like this.
Okay.
This is called SLR, Systematic Literature Review.
Yeah.
Systematic, systematic literature
Review.
review. You can search the Google
Okay.
and type systematic literature review. It explains the steps in
Yeah,
doing
yeah, yeah.
the literature review. Okay. So I just delete this one.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
can you remember this one or not?
Yeah, I have the screenshot.
Okay, yeah, you can screenshot.
Yeah.
Or I can I can send to you later this one.
Okay.
Okay. So I will send to you this one later.
Okay.
Okay, and then as you identify useful literature, begin designing a literature map. So some people they do literature map, but in your case you don't have to do. You just do the systematic literature review. And then finally you have to decide the type. So we use American Psychological Association or APA. Okay. So for example, if you use Mendeley here, so this is called Mendeley. Okay, so this is called Mendeley. Uh, they will
Okay.
explain to you how you can write, do the citation and reference using Mendeley. You,
Okay.
you try Google first, and
Okay.
if you have questions, you can ask me later.
Yeah, yeah, inshallah.
So step number 7, after summarizing the literature, assemble the literature review, structure it thematically. So you need to structure it thematically based on the variables that you study. For example, your dependent variable is acceptance, and your independent variables, for example, you have
Okay.
3. So that means you have four theme, four theme or thematic. So you structure according to thematic. So for example, I can share. Can you see compliance behavior of income zakat in Kedah?
No, I just see I see your laptop, sir. I don't say anything.
Oh, okay. Can you see now?
Yeah, I can see now.
Compliance behavior of income zakat, right?
Yeah, I can see now.
So this is an example of the literature review using thematic approach.
Okay.
So for example, this one, the variables. Okay, this is example of literature review. So this
Yeah,
one,
attitude and okay.
yeah. So this researcher's variable is attitude.
Okay.
So the researcher needs to explain the previous studies on attitude.
Okay.
Okay, so you decide which variable you want to use, and you do the study based on the variable that you use. Attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, moral obligation, religiosity. So that is called the thematic literature review. So you do your literature review based on the theme or based on the variable.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. So let's go to chapter 4. Can you see chapter 4, the use of theory?
Yeah, yeah. Chapter 4, the use of theory,
Okay.
introduction. So,
Okay. Give me 5 minutes.
okay, so take your time.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, sir.
Okay, inshallah we continue. We try to finish chapter 4.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, in chapter 4, we will discuss the use of theory. So,
Okay.
for example, if you want to use theory of acceptance model, how we use the theory in our research.
Okay.
So one component of literature review is to determine what theory that you want to use.
Okay.
So in quantitative research, researchers often test theory. So we have to come up with theory, for example, theory of acceptance model or diffusion innovation theory or
Okay.
theory or any theory that you choose. We want to test the theory as an explanation for answers. So
Okay.
in quantitative thesis, an entire section of research proposal or the assignment might be devoted to presenting the theory for the study. So in your assignment, I will take a look at what theory that you choose.
Okay.
You can choose one theory is enough.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
For example, the theory of acceptance model.
Okay.
However, in qualitative research, the use of theory is different. The researcher may generate a theory as final outcome of study. So in
Okay.
quantitative research, the researcher find the data first,
Okay.
analyze the data, and they generate the theory later as the final outcome of the study.
Okay.
And they place the theory at the end of the project.
Okay.
So that is different. Okay, so in mixed method research, researchers may both test theory and generate them. Some researchers in mixed method, they test the theory first and then mixed method research may contain a theoretical framework, just like the
Okay.
quantitative method.
Okay.
Okay. However, they combine the qualitative data to support the theory.
Okay.
So the use of theory in quantitative methods. Before discussing quantitative theories, it's important to understand variables and
Okay.
the types that are used in forming the theory. A variable refers to a characteristic or attribute of an individual or an organization that can be measured or observed.
Okay.
So some people use the word variable. Some researchers use the word construct. So usually we use the word variable.
Okay.
So usually, typically, social scientists, just like us, we use the term variable.
Okay.
So variables, for example, gender, age, socioeconomic status, attitude, uh, and some other variables. Variables are, there are two types or two characteristics of variables. One is called uh, temporal order, and then two is the measurement, how we measure them. Temporal order means one variable uh, comes before the other variables. One variable is the explains the other variable. So we have, for example, independent variables which explain the dependent variable.
Yeah.
So temporal order means that quantitative researchers think about variables in the form of left to right. So the left variable will affect the right variable of cause and effect. So for example, we say attitude influence the intention to comply with income zakat. So attitude uh, is the variable which explains the intention.
Yeah.
So these are called the independent variables: attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, or other variables. And the variables comes from the theoretical framework. So an dependent variable is
Okay.
the topic of the research. This is the, for example, acceptance, okay, or compliance behavior. So this is the dependent variable. The dependent variable is the variable which is explained by the independent variables. So, and some people they include mediating variables. Mediating variables stand between the independent and dependent variables.
Yeah.
And also there are moderating variables. Okay. So in quantitative research, uh, a theory in quantitative research is an interrelated set of constructs or variables formed into propositions or hypotheses that specify the relationship among the variables. So let's look at one example of a variable. You can go to Google and type, for example, the theory of acceptance model.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, can you see the screen?
Oh, the screen. Yeah. The diagram. Yeah.
Yes,
Charismatic of theory.
yes.
Okay.
This is an example of a theory. So this theory is called technology technology acceptance model. Okay, so in this theory, the dependent variable is actual system use. For
Okay.
example, this is the use of Islamic banking product.
Mm.
And then this is the behavioral intention to use. And there are two variables. This this is called dependent variable, actual
Yeah.
system use. And this is called mediating variable
Okay.
because it comes between the dependent and the independent variables.
Yeah.
There are two uh, independent variables in this model, perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. So you can use this model, for example, just example. So previously, which model did you use? I- Did,
Yeah.
did you use this model or other model?
It's doing another model.
Oh, okay. So you can show me the model that you use, and
Okay.
we can discuss before we write the literature review.
Okay. Okay.
So in this model, uh, just to show you as an example,
Yeah.
so there are two IVs, independent variables, one dependent variable, and one mediating variable. So that is called the theory.
Yeah.
So according to Labowitz and Hagedorn 1971, they define theoretical rationale as specifying how and why the variables and relational statements are interrelated. Why would an independent variable x influence or affect a dependent
Okay.
variable y? So the theory would provide the explanation for this expectation or prediction. So a discussion about this theory would appear in a section of a proposal on literature review or in separate section called the theory base. Usually we write on chapter 2. And the theory or
Okay.
the theoretical framework we write in chapter 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the investigators or researchers combine independent variables, mediating variables, and dependent variables into questions we call hypotheses based on different forms of measures. These questions provide information about the type of relationship, whether positive, negative, or unknown, and its magnitude, whether high or low.
Okay.
So forming this information into a predictive statement or hypothesis, a researcher might write, for example, the greater the centralization of power in leaders, the greater the disenfranchisement of the followers. Or for example, I can write something like attitude influence the intention to pay income zakat, for example. So that is called the hypothesis.
Yeah.
So theory develops as an explanation to advance knowledge in particular fields. Okay, so we can adapt and adopt and we can improve the current theory. We can add another variable if we feel that it is suitable.
Yeah.
So this is the use of theory in qualitative methods. Okay, you might not want to do qualitative methods, right? But
Okay.
we just discuss it anyway. So
Okay.
qualitative research use theory in their studies in several ways. First, much like in quantitative research, the theory is used as a broad explanation for behavior and attitudes, and it may be complete with variables, constructs, and hypotheses. Themes in this context provide a ready-made series of hypotheses to be tested from the literature. Although in qualitative methods, the researchers might not refer to them as theories, they provide a broad explanation that anthropologists use to study the culture, sharing behavior, and attitudes of people. So in qualitative also the theory can be used to explain a certain behavior and attitude. Okay, so the use of theory in a mixed method, okay, we skip that one. And
Okay.
then, okay, now we go back to how to write a introduction part or the chapter one. So chapter one
Okay.
is introduction, right?
Yeah.
So you can try to improve your chapter one and submit to me next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sir.
So the importance of an introduction, which is like chapter one.
Yeah.
And an introduction is the first passage in journal article, dissertation, or scholarly research study. It sets the stage for the entire project. So chapter one is very important.
Yeah.
Wilkinson mentioned the following. The introduction is the part of the paper that provides readers with the background information for the research reported in the paper. Its purpose is to establish a framework for the research so that readers can understand how it is related to other research. The introduction establishes the issue or concern leading to the research by conveying information about a problem. So
Yeah.
there is a section on problem statement where researchers establish the problem that they want to study
Yeah.
because it is the introduction is the initial passage in a study or proposal. Special care must be given to writing it. The
Okay.
introduction needs to create reader interest in the topic. So the researcher wants to make a reader interested in the topic.
Okay.
So usually the researcher writes something like overview of the study or background of the study or motivations of the study
Okay.
to create interest
Yeah.
uh, to the readers. Introduction also establish the problem. So you need to write the problem statement, establish the problem that leads to the study, place the study within the larger context of the scholarly literature, and reach out to specific audience.
Okay.
Uh, okay. A research problem is the problem or issue that leads to the need for a study.
Okay.
So the research problem can originate from many potential sources. It might come from research experience, the experience of the researchers. It may come from extensive debate or seminar or journal articles that appeared in the literature.
Okay.
The literature may have a gap that needs to be addressed. Some of previous research, some of previous studies they mentioned something that which needs to
Okay.
be done, the direction for future research. So the literature may have a gap that needs to be addressed, alternative views that should be resolved, or a branch that needs to be studied. So furthermore, the research problem might develop from policy debates in government or among top executives. So the sources of research problems are many. There are many sources.
Yeah.
Identifying and stating the research problem that underlies a study is not easy.
Okay.
Unfortunately, too many authors do not clearly identify the research problem.
Okay.
So some of them do not explain research problem clearly, leaving
Yeah.
leaving readers to decide for themselves the importance of the issue. So when the problem statement is not clear,
Yeah.
it is difficult to understand all other aspects of research study, especially
Yeah.
the significance of research. So if problem statement is not clear, the readers don't understand uh, why this research needs to be done and what is the significance of the research.
Yeah.
Furthermore, the research problem is often confused with research questions. So research problem is different. Research problem is stated in the research in the problem statement, and research questions are different,
Okay.
right? So research questions are
Yeah.
related to the objective of the study. So if you have three research questions, then you have three objectives of the study.
Uh,
Okay. So this is how you want to write introduction for qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method. So
yes.
let's focus on the quantitative introduction.
Yeah.
A quantitative
Yeah.
introduction may be written from the impersonal point of view and in the past tense to convey objectivity. Okay. Mm. So the problem statement depends on whether you're doing a quantitative study or qualitative study or mixed method
Yeah.
study.
Okay.
So okay, okay, before we finish, I want to show you one more thing.
Okay.
Well, I think that's all I want to share with you today. Any question?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, for today.
So try to improve your chapter one and show it to me.
Okay. Yeah, inshallah. I will try to finish this week and this week, inshallah.
Okay. And
Okay.
try also to show me the theory or the theoretical framework that you use, the diagram,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah, the theoretical framework of the study.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay, sir.
I think that's all the class for today.
Okay. Thank you so